Good evening. It is Monday night, and tonight we're going to read Genesis chapter 11. But before I do that, I would like to tell y'all that I've realized once again I'm a goober. I was telling y'all the other night that I had lost my videos of Revelations from chapter 6 on, and I had just made my mind up that I was going to have to record them again. I was just going to do a live, but just fix it where I was the only one that could see it, and then download it and move it. And then I realized that it's I never did them. I stopped at the end, and I know y'all remember this, but I didn't. I stopped in Revelation at the end of November so we could read Luke, and then I was going to come back and finish up Revelation. But since we're in Genesis, we're going to finish Genesis, and then we're going to finish Revelation, and then we'll do something else. But anyway, I am very easily amused. That's why I can laugh at myself. A friend of mine used to say that blessed are those who can laugh at themselves because they are easily amused, and that is me all the way. I know the good Lord gets a laugh out of me at least once a week, if not more than that, because I can come up with some crazy things. I feel like I'm right up there with I Love Lucy. But anyway, we're going to read Genesis chapter 11 tonight. And it starts out the Tower of Babel, and this is serious, so I've had my little fun now, but we're going to read about the Tower of Babel. And you know, we talked the other night about that it said that they all had their own languages, but we talked about how chances are that was dialects and, family type things. It wasn't like the difference between Spanish and English and German. It was they could understand each other, but they had different words for things. But we're fixing to see how that changed. The Tower of Babel. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And see, I just said they had different words. But I think, we all know what we're talking about. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen, I think that's how you pronounce it, bitumen, for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." And I have a note over here that says they were worried about that and doing their own thing. They were mighty, M-I-G-H-T-Y. They were mighty in their own minds. God had told them to disperse, and they didn't want to. Verse 5, "And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them." Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. And I have a note over here that says, was that a curse, like living forever away from God? And that was in chapter 3, verse 22. "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech." And I want to say something about this. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. I want us to think about some of the things that we as humans have done just because we could. And you know that old saying, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I'm thinking about some of these horrible tools of war and destruction, like the atomic bomb. Just think about not just killing people, but destroying areas, and the ones who survived were horribly maimed and disfigured, and those things, I think it probably changed their genetic makeup, so maybe their children were maimed. And the medicine from back in the 60s that they would give pregnant women to help them not throw up, and turns out later that they caused such horrible birth defects that it was, I mean, because we were too smart for our own good. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. That does sound like a curse. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. Oh, I skipped a verse, verse 7. Come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth, which was what he had asked them to do to begin with, and they didn't want to do that. And you may not be aware of this. There is a software my son uses, or has used it before in the past, I believe. He loves to study languages. And it's called Babbel. Or maybe Babelfish, I don't remember. But anyway, it's from that, because Babel was where the languages were confused, and people had to go off with people that could understand their speech, and they took their own groups and moved out to other areas. Shem's descendants. These are the generations of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he fathered Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he fathered Arpachshad 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad had lived 35 years, he fathered Shelah. And Arpachshad lived after he fathered Shelah 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he fathered Eber. And Shelah lived after he fathered Eber 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When Eber had lived 34 years, he fathered Peleg. And Eber lived after he fathered Peleg 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg had lived 30 years, he fathered Reu. And Peleg lived after he fathered Reu 209 years and had other sons and daughters. When Reu had lived 32 years, he fathered Serug. And Reu lived after he fathered Serug 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug had lived 30 years, he fathered Nahor. And Serug lived after he fathered Nahor 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor had lived 29 years, he fathered Terah. And Nahor lived after he fathered Terah 119 years and had other sons and daughters. Then when Terah had lived 70 years, he fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And if you will notice, Nahor was named after his grandfather. Terah's descendants. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred, in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was barren, she had no child. Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife. And I'm trying to be real careful because that was his name. It was Abram at that time, not Abraham. And they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Now, it said they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan, but they settled in Haran. And that's going to come up later on. So now that's the 11th chapter of Genesis. And I know these generations and these descendants and all this, that can be, it can seem boring or tedious, but it's important that we see these because it's outlining the generations and showing you, it's showing you. If you noticed, people were having 100 years old and he fathered somebody and then he lived 500 years. And then you get on down, somebody lived to be 35 and he fathered a child and he lived so many more years, and 35 and 30 and 34, and goes down. And so the ages of people seem to be getting shorter. So that's something to look at. But I do want us to think about that. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. That was that a curse. Sometimes God has to do something strong to keep us from doing something so bad it's going to destroy us. When we don't want to listen, when we don't want to be obedient and do, because the Lord knows better about things than we do. I mean, that just makes common sense. He knows what's coming. He knows everything that's going to happen. So why would we not want to let him help us go the right way and do the right thing so he can help us stay out of trouble as much as possible? But anyway, that's chapter 11 of Genesis. And I thank y'all for joining me tonight. And be praying for me that when I get ready to start back on Revelation, I'll remember y'all. Y'all may have to help me remember that. But anyway, thank y'all for joining me tonight, and I will see you tomorrow night.